Welcome, dear listener. You've arrived once again at Sleep Flow Studio, a quiet corner of time where we let history doze softly beside us. Tonight we'll drift through the gentle hum of ancient moments, forgotten inventions, and curious customs that once shaped the world. So settle in. Feel the weight of the day fall away. Let your breathing slow as the words turn soft and steady. And now, as the candlelight of memory flickers low, let's wander into the long and uneventful corridors of history. In the year 1478, in a small European town whose name is mostly forgotten, a merchant kept detailed records of every grain of salt he sold. Salt was valuable, not because it tasted nice, but because it preserved life itself. Long before refrigerators or tins, salt guarded meat, fish, and even cheese against time. Entire empires once built their wealth upon the grains of this simple mineral. The word salary itself comes from sal, the Latin word for salt, because Roman soldiers were often paid in part with it. Imagine a quiet barracks at dusk, the crackle of torches, and a soldier counting out small pouches of coarse white crystals. The same Romans built their roads, long flat lines of stone and dust, not for beauty, but for the simple movement of men and goods. Many of those roads, laid more than 2,000 years ago, still rest beneath modern highways. Beneath the tires of modern cars, old Roman stones still sleep, carrying echoes of sandals and wheels from centuries ago. In ancient Egypt, people used honey not just for sweetness, but as medicine. They believed it healed wounds and calmed spirits. Archaeologists have opened sealed jars from tombs more than 3,000 years old and found the honey inside still perfectly edible. It doesn't spoil. It merely waits. Honey, patient and golden, is older than writing itself. Bees made it before humans learned to carve words in clay. Far north, the Vikings believed the world began in a great void called Ginnungagap, where ice and fire met. When they weren't exploring or raiding, they told stories. Stories carved from frost and flame. But between those fierce legends were long, silent winters. In those months, time itself slowed down. Families huddled in wooden halls listening to the wind sing across the snow. That sound, perhaps, is not so different from the quiet hum you hear now as you rest. In China, thousands of years ago, scholars recorded eclipses on strips of bamboo. They noted how the sky darkened, how the birds went silent. Some emperors thought these cosmic events were messages from the heavens, reminders that they ruled by harmony, not force. In some dynasties, an eclipse meant the emperor had to confess his faults publicly. Imagine that, a ruler standing beneath a shadowed sun, admitting to mistakes before the world. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the world, perhaps in Mesopotamia, a potter turned his wheel slowly by hand. Clay, the simple earth and water, and became a vessel for grain, oil, or wine. The first potter's wheel appeared around 3000 BCE, and from that slow rotation came civilization itself. With storage came trade, and with trade came writing. Most of the first written words in human history weren't poems or prayers, they were receipts. Notes that said things like, "So-and-so owes 5 jars of barley." Humanity began by writing about barley and debt and inventory. In medieval Europe, people often believed that air carried disease, the miasma theory. To stay safe, they walked around holding sweet-smelling herbs near their noses. Lavender, mint, rosemary. They didn't know about germs, but in a strange way, they weren't wrong. Clean air did make a difference. During plagues, some doctors wore long, beaked masks stuffed with these herbs, looking like eerie birds drifting through narrow streets. Speaking of streets, did you know that ancient Rome had traffic laws? Chariots weren't allowed to travel through the city during daylight hours. The noise was unbearable. The wheels on cobblestone, the shouts of drivers, the neighing of horses. So most deliveries happened at night. Imagine trying to sleep in a Roman apartment with the clatter of wooden wheels echoing below until dawn. Let's drift even further back, to the first fire ever kept alive by human hands. Archaeologists believe it happened over 1 million years ago. Before that, fire was only fear, lightning, volcanoes, wild flames. Then one day someone decided to hold it, to feed it twigs, to keep it burning through the night. That act changed everything. Fire gave warmth, protection, and cooked food. But maybe most importantly, it gave time. Time to talk, to tell stories, to imagine. Around a campfire, humanity learned to dream. And those dreams, small and soft as sparks, grew into myths. The Greeks told of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods. The Polynesians told of Maui, who fished up islands from the sea. Across continents, humans invented stories to explain the same wonder, why we are here, and how light came to be, somewhere in a forgotten monastery. Centuries later, a monk copied words by candlelight. Each letter took time, deliberate, careful strokes. The parchment smelled faintly of smoke and wax. Outside, snow fell quietly against stone. That monk might never have known that his careful work would survive 1,000 years, to be read by eyes not yet born. And so it goes. History moves not only in wars or kings, but in small, unnoticed acts. A farmer sharpening a plow, a mother teaching a child to weave, a sailor charting stars on rough parchment. Even calendars, like something we take for granted, were once mysterious. The Romans had only 10 months in their earliest calendar, leaving a strange gap of uncounted days during winter. Later, Julius Caesar fixed the year into 12 months, adding January and February. But even that wasn't perfect. The Julian calendar drifted slowly out of sync with the seasons, and by the 1500s, spring was arriving 10 days early. So Pope Gregory III made another change. The Gregorian calendar, the same one you follow now. To fix the error, they simply skipped 10 days. People went to sleep on October 4th, 1582, and woke up on October 15th. 10 entire days vanished. Just gone. As the world turned, centuries unfolded. In the 1600s, tulips became so fashionable in the Netherlands that one rare bulb could cost as much as a house. People traded them like gold. It was called tulip mania, one of the first economic bubbles in history. And when it burst, many fortunes quietly wilted just like the flowers themselves. In the 1700s, a Swiss watchmaker invented the first automatic clock that wound itself as it moved in an early whisper of the machines to come. He probably didn't imagine his creation would lead one day to the hum of satellites orbiting Earth, keeping time for billions of devices in pockets and on wrists. History is strange that way. What begins as a whisper often ends as an echo. Now, as you breathe slower, think of all those quiet lives. The scribe, the potter, the beekeeper, the sailor. People who woke, worked, and slept, their names forgotten. But their small actions stacked together into what we now call civilization. The past is never loud. It hums softly beneath everything, like the faint ticking of a clock at night. And as that clock ticks on, you can let yourself drift further. The world will keep turning. The ancient roads will stay buried. The salt, the honey, the parchment, all still waiting, quiet, unchanged. Sleep well. Long before clocks measured hours, people measured time by shadows. In ancient Egypt, the obelisks stood tall, casting long lines across the sand as the sun moved slowly from east to west. The priests and scribes watched these shadows, not for urgency, but for rhythm. The shadow moved gently, like a slow lullaby, marking ceremonies, prayers, and quiet moments in the temple. In Greece, philosophers argued about the stars. Pythagoras, with quiet thought, considered the music of the spheres, the idea that planets moved in harmony, producing sounds too subtle for human ears. Perhaps in the silence of the night, you might imagine that music, a soft, endless hum, ancient as the universe itself. Meanwhile, in distant lands, people shaped clay with patient hands. The Indus Valley civilization created intricate seals, each one stamped carefully into soft clay. These symbols, still undeciphered, hold secrets of trade, family, and perhaps stories of everyday life. The artisans never hurried. Every impression was deliberate, each detail small but precise, as though time itself had slowed to accommodate their work. In medieval Japan, monks inked long scrolls with calligraphy that flowed like water. The brush moved slowly, following the rhythm of the breath. Each character required stillness, a quiet moment of attention. The finished scrolls often depicted nothing remarkable to the hurried eye, a single tree, a distant mountain. But to those who paused, they held centuries of calm. In Africa, the great kingdoms of Mali and Songhai traded gold along silent rivers. Caravans moved through deserts, carrying riches that were measured in weight, not in numbers. The rivers were their arteries, and along the way, countless moments passed quietly. The bell of a camel, the whisper of wind over sand, the soft clink of coins exchanged beneath the sun. Even in warfare, history holds long pauses. The medieval castles of Europe were often surrounded by moats, but the days were largely uneventful. Soldiers trained and patrolled, but most mornings passed with the crow of a rooster, the flutter of birds, and the slow rise of mist over stone walls. Battles happened, yes, but far more time was spent waiting, watching, and listening. In the 15th century, a German printer named Gutenberg pressed ink onto paper for the first time in a way that would change the world. The process was slow, each letter placed individually, each page aligned carefully. The press groaned as it made contact with paper, a rhythm that would echo in libraries and homes for centuries. And yet, at the time, it was a quiet labor, unnoticed by the streets outside, a small revolution contained in a single workshop. Across the seas, Polynesian navigators read the stars to cross vast oceans. They noticed the same constellations night after night, guiding them slowly to distant islands. The waves moved beneath their canoes with a soft, unending rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. Each journey could take weeks, but the navigators learned patience, letting the stars and currents dictate the pace. In England, candle makers worked silently in narrow workshops. Beeswax was melted and poured carefully into molds. Each candle was unique, each wick trimmed to the correct length. These candles would later light homes, churches, and streets, yet the labor itself was quiet, repetitive, and precise. The soft flicker of flame became a companion to long nights of reading, writing, or simply thinking. Meanwhile, in the cold north, the Inuit carved tools from bone and stone. Every cut, every scrape was deliberate. Their survival depended on patience and precision, not speed. Knives, needles, and harpoons moved slowly from raw material to finished object, each one a testament to human endurance and careful thought. In ancient Rome, laundry was done along the Tiber River. Foulons, the fullers, washed wool in vats of water and urine. Yes, urine, which contains ammonia and helped clean the cloth. They stomped and soaked, repeating the process again and again. The work smelled unpleasant, but the rhythm of the steps and the repetition was almost meditative, a slow choreography passed down through generations. Around the world, in China, scholars inked dictionaries, encyclopedias, and maps. Paper was fragile. Every stroke mattered. They copied texts word by word, sometimes for decades. Each manuscript was a quiet conversation with the past, each character a whisper from someone long gone, preserved on thin sheets that might last centuries if treated gently. In the Americas, the ancient Maya observed the movements of Venus. They recorded its rising and setting over long periods, charting its patterns in codices that few would ever read. The study was precise, patient, and repetitive, a slow dance with the heavens, measured in nights, months, and years rather than hours. Even inventions like the spinning wheel, appearing first in India, moved slowly at first. Hands turned the wheel, pulling fibers into thread. Every rotation was deliberate. Over time, the spinning wheel transformed life, but in its earliest days it was simply a quiet, repetitive process, a companion to long evenings and thoughtful minds. The world is full of these small, unnoticed actions. A farmer planting seeds waiting for rain, a scribe sharpening a quill, a fisherman mending nets by the river. Every one of these moments passed quietly, measured not in headlines, but in patience. And somewhere, in another part of the world, someone lit a fire, stirred a pot, or folded a piece of cloth. Perhaps they wondered about tomorrow. Perhaps they did not. The details are lost, but the rhythm remains. The slow passage of time, the quiet repetition, the steady hum of life, all of it waits, unchanged, beneath the layers of history. Sleep now as they slept in quiet hours in small unnoticed acts. Let the rhythm of centuries carry you softly, like a gentle stream through fields of time. In the quiet valleys of ancient Anatolia, villagers wove baskets from reeds and twigs. Each strand was bent carefully, each weave deliberate. The baskets held grains, fruits, and sometimes small trinkets, but the act of weaving itself was slow and rhythmic. Fingers moved in patterns passed down through generations, a quiet conversation with the hands of ancestors. Meanwhile, on distant islands in the Pacific, people harvested coconuts with steady patience. Each tree climbed slowly, each fruit plucked with care. The harvested coconuts were cracked open, dried, and stored for months. Life followed the gentle cadence of sun and tide, and the ocean whispered its soft, endless song along sandy shores. In the winding streets of medieval Baghdad, scholars copied manuscripts by hand in dimly lit rooms. Their lamps burned low, their pens moved steadily across parchment. They wrote on subjects ranging from astronomy to medicine, often repeating calculations and diagrams for days on end. The city outside bustled, yet inside the scholars existed in a quiet world of ink and thought. Over in Mesoamerica, people cultivated maize, observing the slow growth of stalks and ears. They noted the patterns of rain and sun, and over generations, they learned when to plant and when to harvest. The cycles of planting and waiting became a natural rhythm, a quiet pulse that guided daily life. In the frozen north, reindeer herders moved with their herds across snow-dusted plains. Their footsteps left gentle impressions in the snow, each step deliberate and careful. They carried children, supplies, and tools, and each day passed slowly, measured by the distance traveled and the behavior of the herd. The cold wind whispered against fur and leather, a constant companion to the quiet travelers. In the courts of medieval Europe, scribes illuminated manuscripts with tiny, intricate designs. Gold leaf shimmered softly against vellum as they worked for hours on a single page. Each swirl and curve required immense patience, each miniature a meditation in itself. The quiet of the scriptorium was a balm, a soft hush in a world that could otherwise be loud and chaotic. In ancient India, astrologers observed the stars nightly, recording positions and movements. They noticed subtle shifts over months and years, quietly charting the heavens. Their notes would later inform calendars, festivals, and rituals, but the act of observing itself was slow, contemplative, and deliberate. Somewhere in Europe, blacksmiths hammered metal into tools and weapons. Sparks flew in brief, bright flashes, then the workshop returned to quiet. The hammering was rhythmic, almost hypnotic, a repetition that stretched hours into a gentle flow. Each tool created was precise, made to last, and the hands of the blacksmith moved with patience and care. In the rivers of ancient China, fishermen cast nets with careful timing. They watched the currents, noticed the tides, and waited. The water reflected sunlight and moonlight, shifting slowly across time. Fishing was not merely a task. It was a quiet observation of nature's patterns, a slow dialogue with the river. Even in the halls of early universities, students copied notes and diagrams painstakingly. Long hours were spent with quill and ink, writing slowly, reviewing, and repeating. The learning itself was a form of quiet meditation, each letter and diagram a tiny mark in the long story of human knowledge. In ancient Egypt, farmers watched the flooding of the Nile. Each year the river rose and receded in a predictable, gentle cycle. They planted their crops according to the water's movements, trusting in the slow rhythm of nature. The flood brought life and the waiting brought patience. On distant plains, nomads moved slowly with the seasons. Their tents, animals, and families traveled together, following rivers, mountains, and winds. Days passed quietly, measured not in hours or minutes, but in the journey itself. Life unfolded gently, as it always had, in repetition, rhythm, and care. In the early days of printing in Europe, paper was a luxury. Printers moved methodically, setting type by hand, pressing sheets one by one. Each book emerged slowly, a product of patience and precision. Outside, streets bustled, but inside the workshop, time slowed, and every printed page carried with it the quiet labor of countless hands. In the deserts of Africa, traders moved along ancient routes carrying salt, gold, and other goods. Camels walked steadily, leaving footprints in the sand that the wind would slowly erase. Traders measured distance not by speed, but by endurance. Each day passed with sun and shadow, each night with stars and gentle rest. Even in homes, people kept time with small, quiet routines. Bread was kneaded slowly, soup stirred gently, clothes folded with care. Life, in its tiniest acts, moved quietly and predictably, like the heartbeat beneath a sleeping body. And now, as the world spins softly around you, remember that every small, deliberate act in history, every basket woven, every note copied, every crop planted, forms the gentle rhythm of human life. These slow movements, repeated countless times, are the lullabies of the past, carrying you deeper into calm. Sleep as they did, in patience and quiet, in the steady pulse of time. Long before roads connected cities, paths were marked by stones or worn earth. Travelers moved slowly, guided by memory and observation. A shepherd might lead his flock over hills, counting each step without hurry. Birds followed the wind, and the sun painted the landscape with gentle light. Each journey was quiet, measured, and deliberate. In ancient Persia, gardens were designed with patience. Water flowed through channels carved into the earth, tracing paths among trees and flowers. The gardeners observed each plant, pruned slowly, and tended to the soil with care. The arrangement of water, shade, and greenery was deliberate, meant to last and to calm anyone who wandered through the space. Meanwhile, in northern Europe, people built longhouses from timber and clay. Each beam fitted carefully into another. Roofs were thatched slowly with reeds. Families lived and worked together in these structures, their days following a soft rhythm dictated by light and season, by tasks and by rest. Life was steady, unhurried, and measured. In ancient Rome, public baths were centers of calm. Citizens soaked in warm water, listened to the murmurs of others, and allowed their minds to drift. Pools were heated by slow-burning furnaces, and the steam rose quietly into the air. Conversation, laughter, and the occasional splash blended into a gentle background, a soft melody of daily life. On the islands of Southeast Asia, people harvested rice with slow precision. Each stalk was cut by hand, gathered into bundles, and carried carefully to the drying fields. Seasons dictated the pace. Time was measured by the rising and setting of the sun, by the rain that nourished the land, by the quiet growth of crops. In the libraries of medieval Europe, scholars copied texts slowly and meticulously. Each page took hours. Mistakes were erased or scraped away. The quill glided over parchment, ink flowing steadily. Outside, life continued. Markets, horses, bells. But inside, only the slow rhythm of thought and hand persisted. In ancient China, artisans created silk cloth by hand. Threads were spun, dyed, and woven with patience. Each pattern took weeks to finish. The silk, smooth and delicate, carried not only beauty, but the quiet persistence of generations who perfected the craft. Along the Nile, fishermen cast nets at dawn. Their boats drifted slowly on the water. The river moved with the tide, carrying the reflections of the sky. Fish were caught carefully, each movement deliberate. Life followed the gentle rhythm of water, sun, and wind. In the plains of Mesopotamia, farmers plowed fields with oxen. The animals moved steadily step by step. The soil turned slowly beneath the plow. Seeds were planted by hand, watered patiently, and observed over time. The cycle of growth was unhurried, and the farmer learned to wait, to notice small changes, to trust the rhythm of nature. In Japan, tea ceremonies evolved as a form of quiet meditation. Every motion was deliberate. The placing of the cup, the pouring of water, the folding of cloth. Silence accompanied the gestures. Each sip of tea became a connection to centuries of tradition, a slow celebration of mindfulness and patience. In early Africa, pottery was molded by hand, spun carefully on slow wheels and fired in gentle kilns. Each vessel was unique. Time stretched in the repetition of shaping, smoothing, and firing. The work required attention, patience, and quiet dedication. Even in the distant Arctic, people carved tools and built shelters with care. Each incision in bone or stone mattered. Each wall of ice or snow was placed deliberately. Survival depended on calm observation and slow, steady effort. Every day passed with the gentle rhythm of the sun and stars, the wind and snow. In the early Americas, people painted cave walls with images of animals and daily life. Each stroke was slow, intentional. The pigments came from earth, charcoal and minerals, applied with patience. The paintings were quiet conversations across time, still visible to us now as soft echoes of thought and observation. In Europe, candle making continued quietly. Beeswax was softened, molds filled, wicks centered. Each candle was crafted to burn evenly, to provide light, and to accompany the silent evenings of households. The gentle flicker of flame became a companion to long hours of reflection, reading, or simple rest. In the forests of Scandinavia, woodworkers carved furniture, tools, and sculptures. Each cut was deliberate, each plane of the wood smooth and considered. Generations honed their craft, moving slowly with care and patience. Their creations endured, quiet monuments to steady hands and thoughtful minds. In all these places, in all these times, life passed quietly. The small action, tending fields, weaving cloth, carving stone, observing stars, created the soft pulse of civilization. Not the loud battles or fleeting events, but the slow accumulation of effort, patience, and repetition. Sleep now carried gently on the rhythm of these ancient lives. Let the quiet patience of the past cradle you as the world turns softly and the night stretches long and calm. In the shadow of mountains long forgotten, people built simple shelters from stone and clay. Each wall was raised slowly, each roof laid with care. They worked in rhythm with the sun, pausing when it was high, resuming when the light softened. The structures stood not to impress but to endure, a quiet testament to careful hands and patient minds. In the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia, farmers invented the plow. At first it was heavy and awkward, pulled by oxen that moved steadily, step by step. Over years the plow became lighter, easier, more precise. But every planting season, time was measured by patience. Each furrow cut, each seed buried was part of a slow, repeating cycle, the quiet heartbeat of life. Meanwhile, in distant China, scholars observed the moon. They noted its phases, the way its light shifted across mountains and rivers. Their observations were recorded meticulously on bamboo strips and silk scrolls. Each night brought repetition, each month a new cycle. The celestial rhythm mirrored the rhythm of daily life, slow, predictable, gentle. In Europe, blacksmiths shaped iron with hammers and anvils. Sparks flew briefly, then vanished. The steady clang of metal on metal became a rhythm, almost meditative. Tools and weapons took shape slowly, each one forged with care. Outside, the village moved in its usual tempo, but inside the workshop, time seemed to pause with each deliberate strike. On the shores of the Mediterranean, fishermen repaired nets with steady fingers. Each knot tied, each hole mended, required patience and precision. Boats rested lightly on the water, moving with the tide. The work was quiet, unhurried, a slow dialogue with the sea and sky. In the forests of northern Europe, woodcutters felled trees with hand axes. The work was repetitive, exhausting, yet rhythmic. Axes rose and fell in a steady cadence, echoing softly among the trees. Logs were split, shaped, and stacked for months of work to come, each day measured in effort and quiet accomplishment. In ancient Egypt, scribes recorded grain, taxes, and ceremonies. They inked symbols slowly on papyrus, each stroke deliberate. Outside, the Nile flowed without concern, carrying boats and children's laughter. But inside the scriptorium, time moved differently. Slow, careful, measured by ink and breath. In the Americas, the Maya observed the movements of Venus and other planets. They recorded eclipses and solstices and codices, tracking the sky with patience that spanned generations. Their careful observations guided planting, rituals, and festivals, weaving the slow rhythms of the cosmos into the fabric of daily life. In Japan, artisans shaped pottery on slowly turning wheels. Clay was kneaded, formed, and fired with care. Each piece was unique, shaped by the rhythm of hands and wheel. The soft spinning became a meditation, a quiet dialogue with material, water, and heat. In medieval Europe, bakers kneaded dough for hours. Their hands moved steadily, pressing, folding, waiting as the yeast slowly transformed the mixture. Bread rose quietly, filling homes with warmth and soft aroma. The process was long and patient, a gentle companion to the pace of daily life. In distant Africa, goldsmiths hammered and shaped metal into jewelry. Each small piece required careful attention. Repetition and patience guided every strike and every curve. The resulting objects were treasured, not for their value alone, but for the quiet skill embedded within them. Along rivers in ancient India, people made paper from bark and fibers. The process was slow, soaking, pounding, drying. Each sheet was a small miracle of patient work. These sheets would later carry words and images, holding ideas and memories for centuries. In the icy north, hunters carved tools from bone and antler. Each cut was measured, deliberate, necessary. Survival depended on precision and patience. Every morning began with observation. Every evening ended with careful preparation for the next day. The rhythm of life was slow, deliberate, and unhurried. In the quiet homes of the past, people spun yarn and wove cloth. Hands moved in circles, thread intertwined with thread. The work was repetitive but calming. The resulting fabric clothed families, softened beds, and carried the quiet touch of hands long gone. Even in the grandest palaces, life was measured in small acts. Courtiers walked slowly through gardens. Servants polished floors in repetitive motions. Scribes copied letters with steady hands. History is not only made in battles or treaties, it is composed in these small, patient movements that shape everyday life. And now, as you rest, imagine the countless quiet moments unfolding across centuries. The rhythm of water, the movement of animals, the shaping of stone, the weaving of thread. Each act, slow and deliberate, forms a gentle heartbeat through time. Let the quiet pulse of history carry you deeper into rest. Sleep as they did in patience, in calm and gentle repetition. In the soft light of early mornings, villagers across the world began their days quietly. In distant valleys they milked goats and cows, their movements slow and measured. Each step, each motion, was deliberate. The soft sound of hooves, the gentle pull of pails, the whisper of wind through trees. Life moved in rhythm with the day, gentle and unhurried. Along the rivers of ancient China, farmers built terraces to hold water. Stones were placed carefully, soil layered slowly. Each terrace required months of patient work, but once finished, it shaped the land for generations. Water trickled down each step, feeding crops and creating a soft melody that lingered long after the builders rested. In Europe, candle makers continued their quiet labor. Beeswax was melted, poured, and molded with care, each wick centered, each candle formed slowly. The gentle glow of flame would illuminate homes, monasteries, and streets, providing warmth and light, and the repetition of creation soothed the hands and minds of the makers. In the deserts of Africa, traders walked steadily along ancient caravan routes. Camels plodded step by step, loads balanced carefully. They measured distance not by hours, but by sun and shadow, by sand and wind. The journey was long, but quiet, a soft rhythm of motion and patience carrying goods and stories alike. In the forests of Scandinavia, woodworkers carved furniture and tools from trees felled in the slow sweep of seasons. Each cut and carve required concentration, and the work moved in quiet cadence. The rhythm of hammer, chisel, and saw became a lullaby in its own right, echoing softly through workshops and cottages. On islands in the Pacific, people navigated by stars. Canoes drifted across wide seas, guided by constellations and ocean currents. Each night, sailors observed the sky slowly, learning patterns over weeks and months. Their patience was measured not in minutes, but in tides and winds in the gentle pull of the sea. In ancient Egypt, scribes recorded harvests, taxes, and ceremonies. Papyrus absorbed the ink slowly, letter by letter, word by word. Outside, the Nile flowed, sun warmed the land, and time moved in its quiet, predictable rhythm. The work of writing became a meditation, a steady pulse that connected past and future. In the Americas, the Maya and Aztec civilizations observed celestial movements with careful attention. Eclipses, solstices, and the passage of planets were recorded over years. These quiet observations guided planting, rituals, and daily life. Time itself seemed to stretch slowly under their patient gaze. In Japan, tea masters moved through the ceremony with deliberate care. The placing of cups, the pouring of water, the folding of cloth, each motion intentional, unhurried. The ritual carried centuries of tradition, its pace a soft rhythm that invited calm and reflection. In medieval Europe, bakers kneaded dough for bread, hands pressed, folded, and rested over and over. The yeast worked slowly, rising quietly. The process itself was gentle and predictable, filling kitchens with warmth, patience, and soft aroma. In Africa, artisans shaped clay pots with slow, careful hands. Each pot required steady rotation, gentle shaping, and patient firing in kilns. These objects, simple yet enduring, carried with them the quiet rhythm of human effort and attention. In the frozen north, hunters sharpened tools and prepared sleds. Every incision, every lash was deliberate. Life depended on careful preparation, steady observation, and patience. Time passed with sun and snow, wind and silence, each day a quiet repetition of survival and care. In quiet homes across the world, people spun thread, wove cloth, and stitched garments. Each cycle of motion, each interlacing of fibers, was meditative. The fabric, soft and strong, held the history of countless hands, guiding families through the slow, steady rhythm of life. Even in grand palaces, patience shaped daily life. Servants moved quietly through halls, gardeners tended slowly to plants, and scribes inked letters with meticulous care. History is composed not only of dramatic events, but also of these slow, deliberate acts, repeated through generations. And so, across continents and centuries, the quiet rhythm of human life continues. Each small act, planting, weaving, carving, observing, forms a gentle pulse through time. Sleep now, cradled in this rhythm. Let the centuries' soft heartbeat carry you deeper into rest. Drift slowly, gently, as history itself whispers you to sleep.